The very rich and well-documented history of Amesbury High School hockey must include Albert Roy, head coach from 1954 to 1959 and 1961 to 1962. Albie took control and led a team in 1951 to 1952, who was a club-only team with no funding or sponsorship from Amesbury High School. Words like discipline, character, tenacity, and determination would describe his teams over the years. Newspaper editor Jack Bowes described Albie as the epitome of a hockey coach. Player Leo Dupree, the captain of Albie's 1958 team, cites his induction to the High School Hockey Coaches Hall of Fame in 1982, a huge accomplishment and honor given the names of the coaches and highest caliber teams playing in that era of the North Shore League hockey, now the Northeastern Conference. Budgets were poor at best, and Albie made the very best of this status with his competitive team play and sacrifice for the good of the sport and the team. As a wingman in college in Quebec, Albie knew and executed what the hours of practice time taught. Albie was an astute student of the game of hockey, played for the Amesbury Maples, eventually becoming the general manager of the club. He also worked diligently to support the youth hockey programs in its infancy in Amesbury, the high school's feeder system, to learn the geometry and skills of the game to employ it later at AHS. In 1954, AHS began winning games in the Lynn Arena, the only indoor ice arena this team knew. They won some games, lost some games, and tied some games. Words like discipline, character, tenacity, and determination would describe his teams over the years. Albie was the Department of Public Works Commissioner, not a teacher or coach, making communications with his team even more difficult. Players made their own arrangements to transport equipment and themselves to and from the games. In the 1957-1958 season, the team record, including some non-league games, was 18-3-1. Impressively, Albie molded and trained his teams who competed hard for AHS hockey. Practice ice time was at Stewart's Rink, now Clinton Street Extension, St. Jean's Club, Woodsome's Pond, several ponds in Kingston, New Hampshire, at the Town Park Pond, or at Patton's Pond here in Amesbury. All outdoors. No showers, no lockers, no boards. Anywhere that it was cold with an ice surface, Albie loaded his team and goals into his red pickup truck, and off they went. He is remembered for saying, "Gotta keep the boys skating." If he drove around town and didn't see you at a pond practicing with the others, he would state, "Go get your hockey." Practice times were scheduled in the early morning cold and sometimes 2 or 3 times that day. Ultimately, Albie had the tennis courts at the old high school, now the middle school, flooded for practice. Albie lived on Hill Street, abutting the dams at the flats on Clinton Street. He was a master at damming up the creek there and flooding the flats to create a pond to skate on. Albie thought ahead of his time about how warmer than normal winters would idle his well-conditioned team. Amesbury News sports editor and writer Jack Bowes once wrote, "Amesbury had to work at it, and it was Roy who orchestrated the workload." Coach Roy was quoted as saying, "If you don't plan for the future, pretty soon the future's here and you're not ready for it." Team numbers were small, but the players were dedicated to each other to play at the highest level in the competitive North Shore League. Equipment was used, antiquated, non-refurbished, and you were pretty much on your own to maintain it. At the 1957 end-of-the-season banquet, Mr. James Fullerton, the keynote speaker, who was the coach at Brown University at the time, remarked, "I hope that Amesbury, a noted hotbed for this ice game, continues to produce the caliber of boys, both as athletes, students, and gentlemen, to attend Brown University." Dick Michaud, an AHS 1953 alum who went on to excel at Boston College, also has fond memories of the St. Jean's Club rink on French Street and his 8 teammates who played under Roy. Mr. John Carter, a teammate of the 1955 team, recalls the opponent's attitude. "Play the whole game because those Amesbury guys just keep coming at you. Play smart with fewer guys and superior conditioning. Play your position." Many of Amesbury's hockey guys are most proud of the multiple awards and accolades derived from the discipline and drive of their coach. Albie was old school to the core, respect was demanded and returned. Congratulations to the family of Mr. Albert J. Albert Roy. We thank you for all he gave and his love and devotion for Amesbury hockey, and we welcome Coach Roy into the AHS Athletic Hall of Fame.
Representing Mr. Roy is his granddaughter, Kathy Roy Larson.
I have to begin by saying the people of Amesbury are who kept our grandfather's memory alive and filled my life with more gratitude and appreciation for this incredible man and all the people's lives he has touched. I was only 7 when he passed away, but through the years I have been approached many times throughout town with stories that always began, "You're Albie's granddaughter, aren't you?" I heard stories of admiration and love for a man we only knew as Pepe. The first time my brothers and I realized how important Pepe was to so many was at his wake. We were told to go outside, get some air, and we stood on the steps of Jutra's funeral home. We looked to our right, and the line went past Sacred Heart Church. We were just like, why are all these people here to see Pepe? But as we got older and heard more stories and got to read the articles about him, we understood the impact he left on so many. Growing up in Amesbury, I was always stopped in places like, we're going back here, people, Jackson's Bakery, Ferdinand's, Poyer's, and even the town hall. With two grandfathers involved in politics, as well as your mother, you like to hang out at town hall. I heard things like, I played hockey for him, he was a great coach and I admired him. Oh, the stories Albie could tell about the bus rides to Berlin, New Hampshire, to and from, and the trouble we would get in the hotel. I kind of think there was beer involved in that. I heard my father and another gentleman saying today how Albie would be nuts going crazy over watching the pros play today, how they always keep dumping it in the corner, because Albie was always about stick handling, stick handling, stick handling. And in school, we had Mr. Clark for chemistry. Mr. Clark used to love telling stories about my grandfather. Any day we had a test, kids would always say, Mr. Clark, can you talk about Albert Roy? And he did, the whole class. We skipped a lot of tests. Coach was always fair no matter who he was, people would tell me. And I have to tell you, hearing a story from my dad, I know that's true. For those of you who don't know my dad, Don Roy was an all-star defenseman for Amesbury. His father never showed him favoritism. He was treated as all the other players. And when you messed up, Coach let you know it. One day they were playing Danvers, and Dad was having an off game, and Coach said to him, oh, you don't want to play today? Sit in the back. And anybody who knows high school hockey knows the back line is JV, and you don't want to be sent there. And Dad sat there steaming and agitated until Coach said, are you ready to go back in? And he did. And he wanted to prove to his dad he could play. So he went out, gave the Danvers player a nice check, which caused that player to leave the ice on a stretcher, and Dad got his bell rung. And was a little out of it and had to go to that back row to rest. But by far my favorite comment I heard was when my oldest was a baby and I had him in a stroller. Sorry. I met someone who talked about my grandfather, and he put his hand on my son's head and said, I hope you grow up to be half the man your great-grandfather was. I'm sorry. Things we found out along the process of getting into the Hall of Fame, we didn't know a lot of things. I'd like to thank Mark Allred Jr., who's been sharing Amesbury Maples information. And even my dad found out things he didn't know about his father. We didn't know he played goalie, and we never knew he played at the Garden. He never bragged about it, and he never even told his son. Albie played and coached for the love of the game. He always wanted to win, and his talent on the ice did not outweigh the man he was with a big heart. He went on to build a skating rink for the team. He dug up poison ivy and poison oak, getting the parks and baseball fields started, creating the beach at Lake Gardner that people called Roy's Follies because it's never going to work. But here it is still today being used by the young and old. As a selectman fighting and arguing in town meetings with people who was his friends, and after the fighting matches, they would walk out talking and laughing at each other. They may have been on the opposite sides politically, but they respected each other for the love of the town. Someone once told me if people had listened to Albie when he said we need to fix the water and sewer lines, we wouldn't have lost the high school. We heard the word dedication and determination a lot in the thing, and I thank you guys for that. For many years, AHS Hockey presented the Albie Roy Determination Award. I'm sure Albie would be extremely humble about receiving this honor tonight, and I would like to thank Chris Hudon for his hard work, Todd McGrath, Mark Allred Jr., Leo Dupree, who has an enormous amount of information and shared that with our family, and Sam, who got the ball rolling on the Athletic Hall of Fame. And thank you to the Hall of Fame committee and the hard work you put in to make this day an evening special and carrying on the legacies of so many. You are outstanding individuals keeping great memories alive. On behalf of my parents, Donald and Claire, my brothers, Stephen and Kevin, and myself, and our families, we thank you.